All right. Well, that glare's not going to work. The glare literally. All right. So we got a few things to get situated here stream-wise. Back out a little bit of it. No, this is all right. So we're going to have to work to fix the glare, number one. The wife's dress is number two. But at least we can get this thing started in a couple seconds here. All right. Thank you for your patience. Welcome. It's the first time we're trying this on YouTube. It seems as if, at the very least, we're functional. I'm watching this, so that seems pretty good. Welcome. Presented by Odd Shark. I'm going to have to do something about that glare. I'm not going to sit here and hold this the whole time. And, all right, we're up and running. Pathetically, it has taken me close to 2 months to figure this out. And this is the product. But now that we can see it, we know we need to zoom in and work on a few other things. But all right, we're cooking. Here we go. Welcome to the show. We're going to start with a teaser, obviously, to the next show that we're going to do Sunday morning. Anyone who's new to this, Sunday morning will be live 2 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, as we break down the entire NFL card. With the exception of the Sunday night game, we always jump into the Sunday night game in the afternoon during a second stream. Whenever the last afternoon game in the NFL concludes, we launch here. This is where we're going to be for the future. So I'll tweet it out on Twitter, obviously, and then we'll come here, YouTube. All right. Recap of our last stream, which was Monday night. Got off to a great start. Had 2 picks in the Bills game and had 2 picks in the Cowboys game. Hit both in the Bills game. Went under, and we had Travis Kelce under receiving yards. Both those cashed. Slight problem, however. In the Dallas game, we went 0 for 2. We had the Cowboys, who were terrible, and we had Zeke Elliott over rushing yards, and he didn't even come close. So 2-2 on the night. We have now made 100 picks on the season, 50 and 50. 50 and 50. So down the juice. That's where we're at right now. We're going to look at a few things here today. We're going to start with Philadelphia and New York. I'm going to go with a confession here and tell a little story. There are some people in the Bay Area who know this story. A lot of people don't know this story. December 19th, 2010. December 19th, 2010. Michael Vick and the Eagles at the New Meadowlands taking on the Giants. I was covering that game. I was in the press box. And the Eagles were getting absolutely worked. With 8 minutes to go, it was 31-10 Giants. And I left. I left the game. I never really told anyone this, but I figured I'd start the YouTube stream off with some honesty. And I remember I got off. I was like, forget this game. I'm from Allentown, PA. I'm friends with a lot of Giants fans. I didn't want to hear any of it. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So I got in the car and I started driving home. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, that's the game where the Eagles ripped off 4 touchdowns in the final 7.5 minutes. The final touchdown of which was Deshaun Jackson on the punt return going 65 yards as Tom Coughlin came running onto the field to scream at his punter, Matt Dodge, for not kicking it out of bounds. Miracle at the Meadowlands 2, Miracle at the New Meadowlands, New Miracle at the Meadowlands. Got a million different names. I walked out on that game. Not proud of it, but honest about it. And I kept that quiet for years. And I remember, I think I told the story in the Bay Area maybe a year ago, and I figured I'd tell the story here today because anytime these two get together, it conjures up good memories. So I guess I could elevate this a little bit. How does that look? All right, we're learning. We're making some progress here. Some progress. Here's what we're going to start with tonight's game. Weather doesn't seem to be a concern at all. 69 degrees, ha, 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 ha. 10% chance of precipitation, 3-mile-an-hour winds. Shout out weatherchannel.com. Always coming through with the important weather information. So we don't really have to take any of that into account. We're always looking for wind more than anything. That can kill a passing game. But doesn't look like it's going to rain, which was a big factor in the Bills game. Josh Allen was terrible in that game. That was a smash under because of that rain. Injuries tonight. This is more important. We'll start with the Giants because they're not really missing anybody. You know, Saquon Barkley and Sterling Shepard are both out. They've been out. Wide receiver C.J. Board, defensive back Adrian Colbert, former Niner, and linebacker Tay Crowder, all out for this game tonight. Inconsequential, not starters. Not to knock them necessarily, but it's not like going to do anything to the point spread or the analysis. For the Eagles, it's a different story. The good news, Deshaun Jackson is back tonight. The aforementioned Deshaun Jackson. Lane Johnson is going to be back on the offensive line. Avonte Maddox is back at corner. Duke Riley is back at linebacker. No Zach Ertz. No Alshon Jeffrey. Still. No Miles Sanders at running back. No Malik Jackson at defensive tackle. Hey, and the Odd Shark thing's starting to show up now. I don't know, was it clouds outside? Certainly wasn't the pigeons. Comment section open for business if anyone has any questions. Line opened Philadelphia -6.5. That was the look-ahead line last week. And what we saw from these two teams since then was Philadelphia losing a tight game to Baltimore. They went for the 2 at the end. They didn't convert. And the Giants squeaking out a razor-thin victory over Washington by 1 point. Now, the line has since adjusted to where it sits at 4.5. It got as low as Philly 4. So from 6.5 down to 4, then back up to 4.5. It doesn't have anything to do with what we saw this past weekend. It's mostly the injuries. I think there was an anticipation that Jeffrey would be back for this game, and Ertz was going to be expected to play before getting dinged up. So that's where we're at with this. You see a little bit of a dip. Philly -4.5. Total has been a little bit towards the under. 45.5 down to 44. As low as 44 in some places. Although as I look right now, I think there's some 45s out there. Yeah, 45, couple 44.5s. Under money's been coming in, so keep that in mind for tonight's game. And the unders are starting to come back in a big way. Remember that. First 4 weeks of the season, overs were cashing about 60% of the tickets. Unders have started coming back to balance that out. So we're starting to finally see that regression that we were talking about. I was early on that, and then when it actually happened, I bailed out and barely took advantage of any of it. So let me make sure one other thing here before we get into the picks. Okay, perfect. All right. Pick number 1, I am going to play the Eagles tonight. I'm laying the 4.5. Now, anyone who's known me for a while who's watching is going to know that I am an Eagles fan, so they probably think it's a homer pick. I've picked against the Eagles plenty of times in my life. Don't get it confused. Here's what I like tonight. Essentially, I think what you have in the Philadelphia Eagles is an average to slightly above average team that has been beset by injury. I think they have a good coaching staff. I think Wentz is better than a lot of people give him credit for at quarterback. I think ultimately this is a average football team, maybe a little bit better if they're healthy, but they've been beset by injuries. Obviously, that's a critical factor. I think the Giants are a bad football team right now. Doesn't mean Jones and Joe Judge and all these guys can't figure it out, but I think they're a bad football team. So we're looking at a 4.5 point spread, which pretty much reflects probably exactly what I'm saying. This, and I prepared lots of notes for you for this, this is going to come down to a few key factors. I like the way Philadelphia has been playing in recent weeks. They look like they stink because they mostly have stunk this season. They blew that game early against Washington, 17-0 lead in week 1, lost the game. They had the tie against the Bengals. They got run out of their own building against the Rams. People started to pack it in on them. Look at the last 3 weeks. They go to Santa Clara and beat the Niners on a Sunday night. There's Nick Mullins at quarterback, and they were messy, but still, they went out there and handled their business, right? They still handled their business. So they win that game. Then they go to Pittsburgh the following week. They're trailing the Steelers, who are undefeated, trailing them by 2 with under 4 minutes to play. Steelers tacked on a late touchdown. Then last week, they lose to the Ravens by 2. Point being, in the last 3 weeks, they've got a win and 2 very close losses against 2 of the best teams in the NFL. They've been competitive. Now, the Giants have been competitive at times, but they don't score any points. That's one of the biggest issues with this team. They've gone over 20 points one time in 6 games. One time. And you know who that was against? The Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys are the worst defense in the NFL. They're giving up an average of 36 points per game. So they should be able to score against them. Problem is, if you're not scoring against Washington, Chicago, Pittsburgh, all teams with pretty good defenses, but they're not putting up any points at all. This has been a terrible offense. Daniel Jones is throwing 2 interceptions for every touchdown he throws. Look it up. I saw that this morning. I thought to myself, that's not good if you're starting quarterback in the NFL. Analysis is what that is right there. And then the big ticket on top of the whole thing. Doug Peterson on Thursdays. Philadelphia under Doug Peterson playing on Thursdays. 5-0. 5-0 straight up. 5-0 against the spread. And not only that, he's covering the spread by an average of 9.3 points per game. Not winning by an average of 9.3 points per game. Covering the spread by an average of 9.3 points per game. Right? What does that tell us? Peterson is very good getting his team ready to play on the short week. We don't know much about Joe Judge doing this because he's a first-time head coach. This is going to be his first Thursday game. Maybe he's going to be awesome. But the reality is Peterson has shown he's awesome. He's very good at this. You've got a Philadelphia team that I think is a bit underrated. They've been playing well in recent weeks. And then you're looking at a Giants team that just isn't very good on offense. That's that. Philadelphia minus 4.5 is pick number 1. Pick number 2, I got one other pick from this game, and then we're going to go to baseball and college football. Pick number 2, Deshaun Jackson over 36.5 receiving yards. This, after the big speech I gave at the beginning, will probably feel like a sentimental pick. It's not a sentimental pick, but because he's back tonight, it did draw me to him in terms of checking out some of his props. First 2 games of the season when he was healthy, he was targeted 16 times by Carson Wentz. And he's not playing a ton of snaps. He's not out there every down for snaps. But he was out there, and when he was, Wentz was looking for him. So that's 16 targets through the first 2 games. Now, his target count went down a bit in week 3. That's because he's got hurt and barely finished the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's had a great career against the Giants. Not a whole lot of that can come into play. Obviously, divisional opponents are going to be the ones you roll up big stats against. But for his career, 18 games, 128 targets, 69 receptions, 1,109 yards, 6 TDs. He's essentially averaging 7 targets, 3 receptions, and 61 yards a game career against the Giants. Now, a lot of those were in his prime and during his first stint in Philadelphia, but he shows up in these games. He shows up in the divisional games. He had the big punt return, as we mentioned, during the Miracle at the Meadowlands. More importantly, fantasy players will know this. The Giants have not done a good job this year defending opposing wide receivers. There's places you can go to see the numbers defenses are giving up to opposing tight ends, running backs, receivers, quarterbacks, so that you can see great matchups in fantasy, right? The Giants have given up the 3rd most receptions to wide receivers in the entire NFL this year and the 10th most receiving yards. So it's not as if they've done a real good job locking down the opposing wide receivers that they've played. And remember, they did play Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears at one point, right? They've had some good, tough opponents, but they've also had some really lousy offenses they've faced, and they've still given up these numbers. So the 2 picks for tonight's game, we're going to lay 4.5 with the Eagles, and we're going to go over 36.5 receiving yards for Deshaun Jackson. Those are 2. One that didn't make the cut, maybe look into it yourself, because it could be the type of pick you want to end up making. Evan Ingram, Giants tight end. He's sitting around, I think it's like 36.5 receiving yards. I think he's a bit undervalued coming into this game. He has only been targeted, I think, 5 times the last 2 weeks, and he's only caught 3 passes. So there's some risk here. But the Eagles have been terrible defending opposing tight ends this season. Tyler Higbee from the Rams crushed them. George Kittle crushed them. They gave up a touchdown last week to, Nick Boyle from the Baltimore Ravens. Just metrics against tight ends through the roof against these guys. If you're the Giants, you have to notice that. If you're Jason Garrett, which big risk, talking about Garrett, but you've got to notice that the Eagles can be susceptible to opposing tight ends. So something possibly worth looking into if you're interested in more action. All right. So those are the 2 picks from the NFL game tonight. Should we go college football game? We'll go sequential. College football game. I don't know how many people want to get involved in this. Appalachian State and Arkansas State. All right. Appalachian State and Arkansas State. big one tonight. And by big, it's really the only one on the board, which is why I'm going to be playing it. Let me make sure I've got the most up-to-date odds here. So App State's laying 14 total. Oh, it's up to 69.5. Let me update that, 69.5. I am playing the under in this game. And I played the under in the Arkansas State Thursday night game last week against Georgia State, I want to say. And I got crushed in that game. It was touchdowns galore. Oh, no. I had Georgia State in that game. Still lost. Touchdowns galore. Arkansas State, I think, has hung 50 in each of its last 2 games. The offense is incredible. And App State's been off for a few weeks, COVID, things of that nature. There's one thing that Arkansas State does really well. It's throw the football. They don't run that well on offense. They're averaging less than 4 yards per carry. They play horrible defense. They fired the defensive coordinator after last week's game. So the defense is a mess, and they don't run the ball well. What they do is throw. That's their thing. That's what they're known for. That's how they put points on the board. Good thing to be good at in this day and age. But App State's defense has been really solid against the pass, defending the pass. The key game to look at here is a matchup they had against Marshall. All right. Now, Marshall has played 4 games. In the 3 games that weren't the App State game, Marshall's rolling up 44 points a game. They hung 35 or more in all 3 of those games I'm talking about for an average of 44 points per game. They play App State, they score 17. 17 points. App State was solid defending that team. Now, it could be somewhat fluky because it's just that one game, but this is the strength of App State. You go through some of the other games they played this season, they got a non-FBS opponent in there, so you can only take that for what it's worth. These guys can defend the pass a little bit. And more importantly, or perhaps equally as important, they can run the football. 47.7 rushing attempts per game they're averaging this year. 269 rushing yards per game they're averaging this year. 5.7 yards per carry they're averaging this year. These are all great numbers. Point being, they're a 14-point favorite, and they're good at running the football. Okay? If they get the lead as they're projected to do, and they're good at running the ball, they can keep Arkansas State off the field. They can control tempo. They can drain the clock. And if they already are good defending the pass, and they put Arkansas State in a position where they know they have to pass, you can at least custom tailor your defense a little bit to what's coming at you. Because it's pretty clear a team that doesn't run well, that's trailing you perhaps big in a game, that throws well, is going to be throwing at you. So you can make the necessary adjustments. So that's what we're looking at for tonight. Hold your nose on this one. Hold your nose, but under 69.5 points, App State, Arkansas State. All right, so that's 3. College game this weekend we'll get to. Game 3 of the World Series tomorrow night. Dodgers and Rays. Best pitching matchup so far. Walker Buehler for the Dodgers. Charlie Morton, who has been incredible for the Rays. You had me at App State, but I absolutely love doing it. If there's any questions, fire away in there as well. Now that we have a comment section, all types of stuff that we're doing this on YouTube. So, series is 1-1 on ESPN. A daily wager yesterday. I had the Rays at plus money. So that's a nice little hit. Do you like a prop bet for Daniel Jones INT? And do you think App State wins outright? Do I think App State wins outright? Yes. Do I think they cover the 14? No, I would not be betting that. If I was betting the side, I'm betting Arkansas State plus the points. But that's not the pick for the game. I'm going under 69.5 for that game. Daniel Jones, does he throw an INT? It depends on what pricing you get, but usually pretty good for an INT, or at least a turnover in some capacity. So back to the World Series. So little zigzag theory here, right? We get the Dodgers in game 1. Now we get the Rays in game 2. What's going to happen in game 3? The situation sets up beautifully for the Dodgers, which is why they're a sizable favorite. I'm going to play them on the run line. I'm going to lay 1.5 runs at plus 105. So in order for me to win this bet, the Dodgers have to win by 2 or more. They not only have to win, they have to win by 2 or more. I think they're set up well. You might think Charlie Morton's been pitching great. He has. But this plays right into the strength of the Dodgers. The Dodgers hit well against everybody, but they mash right-handed pitching. Absolutely mash it. This season, first in Major League Baseball in home runs against right-handed pitching, second in OPS, second in weighted runs created, second in WOBA, weighted on base average. All metrics that show how much they're mashing. For Morton, he's going to have his work cut out for him in this game. I like that matchup a lot. Conversely, it's Walker Buehler going for the Dodgers. get this. It's the exact opposite scenario as what we just laid out. The Rays hit left-handed pitching much better than they hit right-handed pitching this season against righties. 18th in home runs, 15th in OPS, 15th in weighted runs created, and 16th in weighted on-base average. What does that tell us? The advantage there lies with Buehler, who has been fantastic. Only 4 runs allowed in 19 innings pitched this postseason. Plus, his last outing against the Braves mowed him down. 7 hits, no runs in 6 innings. And now that he's distancing himself out, it looks like those blister problems may be a thing of the past. I don't want to mush it, but just something to keep in mind because that was limiting his starts earlier. So you've got a great pitcher who's in terrific form for the Dodgers going against a team that does not hit right-handed well. On the flip side, you have a Dodger team going against a very good pitcher in Charlie Morton, but the Dodgers crush right-handed pitching. Huge edge to the Dodgers. Think the Dodgers are going to put up a bunch of runs. That's why rather than lay the heavy juice for the win, I'll get a little riskier. I'll lay 1.5 runs at plus 105. So we need the Dodgers to win by 2 or more. Final pick of the stream, and then we'll be back on Sunday. College football Saturday. I'll be betting a lot more games than just this one. So follow me on Twitter at Joe Fortenbaugh. I kind of announced some of that stuff there. Watch Daily Wager, ESPN 2, shameless plug, 6 to 7 Eastern, 3 to 4 Pacific. Iowa State plus 3.5 at Oklahoma State. I like the Cyclones here. Oklahoma State has not played in 3 weeks, COVID stuff. And they have all the pressure in the world to win the Big 12 this year. This is like finally supposed to be Gundy's year, right? Finally supposed to be Gundy's year. Oklahoma's down. Texas is down. Everybody's lost. And then here they are in position to finally go take the Big 12. This is supposed to be Gundy's year. That's a lot of pressure. They've been off for 3 weeks. They're laying 3.5 against Iowa State, who is notorious. The upset gods of the Big 12. They already caught Oklahoma this year. Now, they stumbled out of the gate. If Iowa State doesn't stumble out of the gate, we're talking about them a lot more. But they lose as big favorites to Louisiana to open the season, and everybody kind of checks out on them. And since then, they upset Oklahoma, but they don't get as much credit for that anymore because Oklahoma's looked a little shaky. They beat Oklahoma, they beat TCU, and they beat Texas Tech. Not in that order. It's TCU, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech. But they've ripped off 3 good wins since then. Point being, Iowa State, if they don't falter to Louisiana early in the season, say they're big favorites, say they win that game by 1, and they're 4-0, we're talking a lot more about them. A lot more. But because they lost that game, everybody checked out. They've been good since. They've got big wins since. They can go on the road. They're the upset gods. Oklahoma State has not played in 3 weeks. Gundy's got all this pressure now. Oklahoma State is notorious for blowing it when they have this. The deck is stacked for them. They're notorious for stepping in it. Spencer Sanders should be healthy to play in this game at quarterback for Oklahoma State. I liked him a lot coming into the season. I don't know. I don't know if he's ready to take that next step. So that's the card. 5 picks. Thursday Night Football tonight. Laying 4.5 with the Eagles over the Giants. Deshaun Jackson over 36.5 receiving yards. We've got in college football tonight, App State, Arkansas State under 69.5. Tomorrow, game 3 of the World Series, Dodgers minus 1.5 on the run line. That's plus 105. And then college football Saturday, Iowa State plus 3.5 at Oklahoma State. Thank you for coming to the first stream that we've done on YouTube. I promise to get the close out of there. We'll set the shot up better next time around, but it's progress. Progress for episode 1. Back Sunday morning. I'll tweet out the links, but you can subscribe to this channel apparently and just roll in here whenever you like. Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. That's when we are going to have the NFL rundown. And then when the last afternoon game goes final, we'll launch again and we'll preview the Sunday night game, which this week is, I should probably know that by now. Sunday night, Bucks at Raiders, right over there. Bucks at Raiders. Hopefully they play that game. COVID situation with the Raiders offensive line. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Just cover the close up with a cutout of Low. Just like his big dome right here blocking out the close. All right. Thank you guys for coming. I guess I can end it like this now. All right. I'll see you on Sunday morning. Have a great weekend.